What does Titanic, Scary Movie 2, and a Paul Verhoeven movie named Hollow Man have to do with one another? Nothing. Nothing at all, except they're all ripping each other off. No, I'm just joking. Scary Movie 2 is ripping off both of them. And I had no idea about that until I started Kevin Bacon Month here at Liam's Library. Now, fucked if I know if that's a good segue or not into part 2 of Kevin Bacon Month here at Liam's Library, but it's what we're going with. So, I have my notes here, but we're going to talk about the movie that I just watched. Now, I've watched it twice before, but I watched it like years and years ago, and I didn't rate it. You know, back then I was all about, I knew what good horror was. So I just sat through it for the third time. It's called Hollow Man, right? Now, there are a lot of Kevin Bacon movies where he plays a creep. Some where he plays more of a creep than others. Now, we can't do a Kevin Bacon Month without touching on his creepier characters that he plays, because he is a character actor, and that's what he's good at. You know, like, you don't just put Kevin Bacon in it because he's Kevin Bacon. You do it because you either want him to play the hero, play the bad guy, you know, or play someone over the top like a Nicolas Cage kind of maniac. Which is, you know, like I explained last week, why I picked Kevin Bacon Month instead of Nicolas Cage like everybody else seems to be doing on YouTube lately. So we can't do a Kevin Bacon Month without touching on the fact that Kevin Bacon has played a bad guy a lot of times. So last week, we picked Tremors. Now, he's a hero in Tremors. He's a good guy named Val. And now we have to talk about one of his bad guy roles. And there are a lot of them. So, I'm not reviewing The Woodsman. It is a well-made film with good actors and good acting. Now, Kevin Bacon will play a character that other actors probably wouldn't touch. Like, you know, they wouldn't want to be seen as that person. In The Woodsman, he plays a pedophile. In Sleepers, which I'm also not reviewing this month, so if you're tuning in for Sleepers, fucking just go watch the movie. And it's a great film, don't get me wrong, but it's not getting reviewed on this channel. No way. Sleepers, where he plays a child rapist and a murderer and a prison guard in a juvenile detention center. So, with them two off the table, it was a choice between The River Wild and Hollow Man. Now, because The River Wild, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a Kevin Bacon movie. He's the bad guy in it. So, fuck yeah, he's the bad guy. He plays bad guys. But it's not a Kevin Bacon movie. It's a Meryl Streep movie, and it's a fucking fantastic movie. One day, you know, one day I might do a Meryl Streep month, but, you know, she'd probably end up shooting me in the head because she's just too cool and wouldn't want anything to do with me because I'm just like some tiny little pissant channel. So, because of that, I decided to pick a movie that a good friend of mine, I'm not going to mention him here, but a good friend of mine who can't stand the movie and, like, you know, doesn't like it, likes the actor, don't get me wrong, but he refers to this movie as The Invisible Rapist, starring Kevin Bacon. This movie is, of course, Paul Verhoeven's Hollow Man. We'll be looking at my notes because it's worth it. So, Paul Verhoeven directed such movies as RoboCop, Basic Instinct, what's my favourite one? Starship Troopers, and a lot of other famous stuff. Now, he has a lot of titties in his movies, a lot of violence, a lot of sci-fi. Let's not forget Total Recall. That's Paul Verhoeven as well. Original, of course, not terrible remake. So, Hollow Man is no exception. It's a sci-fi movie about a man named Sebastian something. Doesn't matter. His last name's not important. It's Doctor whatever, but Sebastian, and he's on a breakthrough. He's been working on animals, and he knows how to turn them invisible. Well, the formula that he's working on is going to turn things invisible. The military, the Pentagon, want their hands on this, right? So, you know, just true to formula, true to this kind of movie. Not true to Paul Verhoeven movies, but true to this kind of sci-fi flick. He's an over-obsessed scientist, and he wants to move into human testing. So I decided I'm going to skip all the bullshit. Like, I made a lot of notes about the start of this movie. They experiment on animals. They manage to make the animals invisible, but it's very hard to bring them back from invisible. So when they try to inject them with the serum that brings them back from becoming invisible, the animals die. There's a veterinarian, there's a whole bunch of scientists in this lab, and a lot of it's hush-hush. Pentagon especially getting involved. It's very hush-hush. They want to use it for their military stuff. But of course, our main character, Kevin Bacon, Sebastian, he's very obsessed, and it's his project, right? It's his project. So, of course, as to formula in these kind of movies, he decides to move forward with the human testing. Now, in this movie, we have Elizabeth Shue and Josh Brolin. Now, I love Elizabeth Shue. She was big thing in the 90s. She's the chick from Back to the Future Part 2 and 3. She's Marty's girlfriend. She's she's the prostitute in Leaving Las Vegas, starring Nicolas Cage, which is one of my favourite Nick Cage movies. Very depressing movie, like I know, not popular opinion. And then you got Josh Brolin, who's just playing a side character, but his presence is known. Now, Josh Brolin has since turned into a fucking huge actor. These days, I'd say Josh Brolin would get offered a major role before Kevin Bacon would, depending on the role, but more often than not. It's like bad guy roles and good guy roles. Josh Brolin, he's fucking fantastic. So here we go. So, Sebastian, this scientist, he's just about to undergo this treatment, which is going to make him invisible. And, the thing is, he's a creep. Now, right from the start, we get it. He's sitting there and he's at his computer, like fucking 7 minutes into this movie, he's at his computer. And he's spying on the lady across the street. And he's spying at her through her curtains. And every time she goes to strip off, she'll shut her curtains. And he's like, fucking damn, so fucking close, like I nearly saw her fucking nude. It's like foreshadowing, but, horrible fucking rape culture foreshadowing, And then, so he's decided to go underneath the Pentagon's ruling and say, no, we haven't cracked the code yet, but we're close, because they have cracked the code. But he wants to be the test monkey. So they pin him down, they fucking strap him down, they give him the serum, and fuck yeah, it comes close to killing him, but it works. We now have Kevin Bacon completely invisible. There's only 6 people that know about it in this fucking lab. Right? So, let me tell you, there's a bit where he looks in the mirror and he says goodbye to himself. And it's almost like he knows how insufferable he is. The people around him only put up with him because of his genius, because none of them are as smart as him. But in real life, fuck man, they'd avoid him like the fucking plague, because he is a bad guy. You get that vibe off him straight away. He is a bad guy. And he says goodbye to his visible self. Like, he's so self-assured. But then the thing is, just before he gets strapped to the bed to get given this treatment, he cracks a joke about Superman, Wonder Woman, and rape. And it's a rape joke, and it's not fucking funny, and none of them laugh, but he cracks right up. So, this is the kind of movie we're going to get, man. Listen, I apologise, but I'm not doing Sleepers, and I'm not doing The Woodsman, because those movies are way, way worse. So, 4 Kevin Bacon movies. I've already done Tremors, where he plays the hero, and it's an action-adventure. Now we're going to touch on the bad guy, Kevin Bacon. So, it was hard for me to pick this one, because, he's done a lot worse, but I just didn't want to talk about them horrible movies. Fuck that. I've seen them, and I won't watch them again. I saw Sleepers when I was a kid, and I'll never ever forget how fucking horrible it was, and how good it felt for Kevin Bacon to get fucking shot in that movie. Die, you fucking pedophile fuck. And The Woodsman was just a bit too fucked up. Watched that once with an ex of mine years ago, and we were like, wow, it won awards, that's why we watched it, up in the top corners, won this award, won that award. Good on ya. Definitely not worth a second watch. He takes on roles nobody wants. So Straight off the bat, let's talk about the 90s CGI. Sorry, this movie came out in 2000, so I'll still call it 90s CGI because it was right at the end of it. We're watching all this lab stuff, watching a human body go from visible to invisible. So skin disappears, veins disappears, blood, muscle, left with bones, until finally you're left with just this heat signature and then just this pattern on the fucking bed. That's invisible Kevin Bacon. It's done quite well, or maybe it's not. Like, if you enjoyed it, like I reckon it was passable. But like I said, this movie came out in 2000, so the CGI isn't fantastic. It's fucking definitely passable. Paul Verhoeven does know his CGI. Now, there's a bit where he finally goes invisible, and Elizabeth Shue is leaning over him. Now, this is the thought I got. Because he's been so creepy through this whole fucking movie already, I swear I expected some entity kind of, like, visual where he pinches fucking Elizabeth Shue's nipple, like, just to be a smartass. But no, he's passed out. Sorry, I just had to put that in there. Because this movie makes me think of The Entity a lot. Like, is this a prequel to The Entity? Is The Entity really an entity? Or is it just Kevin Bacon, invisible, fucking raping this poor bitch in her fucking house? Now, this review, I didn't realize it was going to be this bad, but, like, if you've seen Hollow Man, it does fucking go there. And all Paul Verhoeven movies go there. Basic Instinct, man. Like, you get full vagina shots, you get fucking ice pick stabbings, some of the steamiest sex scenes between Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone anybody's ever seen. Well, fucking a hard R rating. Now, I didn't Google this to see what this was rated when it came out, but I reckon it deserved a hard R rating. I reckon it did. So there's a moment where he goes invisible, like I've said, and all of a sudden, none of us can see Kevin Bacon. And I have to say, even I felt a little bit scared. Like, where's Kev? Where's Kev? Is he around? I mean, I know I'm not his type, but I felt nervous, and the movie makes you feel nervous. All of a sudden, it's not a scientific breakthrough movie. You start to remember this character's traits and fucking what he's about. This is Kevin Bacon as his character actor at his best. You don't trust this guy, and you don't want him invisible. It would make you feel so much better to know where he is. Now, there's a veterinarian in this movie. I'd forget her name, but I remember her as Lucy from Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Now, she plays that long, red-headed, very, promiscuous girl who has three suitors, and she ends up getting, she is one of Dracula's, well, Van Helsing, Anthony Hopkins says it, one of Dracula's whores, right? And she always gets her titties out, and she does Lucy so well, and she's, vampires and tits and blood and fucking, carrying this little girl down the stairs, and it's just like, she's intense. And I'm watching this movie thinking, all right, who is this short-haired chick, who's a veterinarian, and she's like, oh, you shouldn't be mistreating animals. It's like, I didn't look it up. I'm like, holy shit, it's Lucy from Dracula. Awesome. She's from The Gift as well. Like, she's got that Billy Bob Thornton movie with Cate Blanchett and Keanu Reeves, where Keanu Reeves plays one scary motherfucker with big black eyes. But she's the friend. She's Cate Blanchett's red-headed friend in that movie. She's in stuff, and she's in this, and she's the veterinarian. I just had to chuck it in there because I love Lucy from Dracula. Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula is my favourite Dracula, and I have read the book, and I have seen the old ones. The Christopher Lee Hammer movies come close, but I fucking love that movie. I just, grew up in a bit of a different era, and I love what Keanu, and I'm a huge Winona Ryder fan, so that's my favourite Dracula movie, but I digress. Let's talk about Hollow Man, and let's talk about Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon is now invisible, right? One other thing I'm going to add. When Kevin Bacon's invisible and all you can do is hear his voice, and he's like, you have no idea how fun this is. It's like, man, you know who else would have pulled that off? Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer Sutherland, at the time, wasn't doing the kind of shit that he was doing in the late 80s. Well, I mean, so late 80s, early 90s and all that cool shit. It was 2000 by now. Like, he wasn't really wowing me then. He wasn't in as much stuff. But I reckon Kiefer could have pulled this off too. I wonder if Paul Verhoeven approached him. I wonder if Paul Verhoeven approached Sharon Stone as opposed to Elizabeth Shue to play the sidekick, to play the female scientist. Anyway, just the voice. It's what got me. Product placement in this movie. So Porsche, Coca-Cola. There's some product placement. Paul Verhoeven does that. He does that. But he doesn't do it so much to an extreme. Not in this movie, maybe. And maybe in his other movies he does. But he didn't do it too extreme for me. So, thing is, what makes him nuts? This movie is about him slowly going insane. Because when they try to bring him back, it's been 10 fucking days and they haven't got the serum right. They can't bring him back from invisibility. And that's kind of what he wanted at the start, but now he's like, man, you don't understand what it's like being stuck in this fucking room. I'm going nuts. I'm like a fucking lab rat. And they're like, well, you know, you put your hand up for it. You know, it's your fault. You know, like you're invisible. Like this is the test. You're right. You know, prepare for it. It's taking how long it's taking. And so he goes loopy, right? But what he does is they pour this stuff on him so that he's got a mask and he's got a suit. So because they're getting a bit nervous not being able to see him. And now that he's invisible, like what he does is he fucks with the cameras so that when there's someone on the late night shift keeping an eye on him, making sure he doesn't just loop out and go invisible and just escape. He does. He takes all this stuff off. He goes invisible and escapes. And they don't know because they're watching a continuous loop of him asleep on the bed. Like through a heat signature, which just reminds me of Speed, you know, reminds me of The Simpsons when Homer Simpson, Lenny and Carl does it to try to get out of work. Yuck, yuck. Now they mentioned that when they were giving this serum to the animals, it was making them insane. It was making them bite. It was making them crazy. Now we've given it to Kevin Bacon. Now he's invisible. Not to mention he's sick. He's sick in the head, and we see this from the start. He's a bit of a sexual fucking sick prick, right? He really fucking is. But I have to admit, I felt claustrophobic watching him stuck invisible and not being able to leave the place in a weird way. It was almost like, he's a bad guy. You should probably alert the authorities that this fuck up has happened and not let him leave. Like, you know, which is going to be hard on him, but it's probably for the greater good. You don't want this motherfucker roaming the streets, especially because he does. He actually does. I thought it was a dream when I first watched this movie, but I just finished watching it. And no, he does. He assaults the chick, Lucy from Dracula, while she's asleep on her first night's watch. He gets away with it. He does it real clever. He goes in there, he plays with her tits, he goes back to his bed. It's fucking horrible. She's not sure if it happened or not. Like you'd fucking not be sure whether it happened or not. Like fucking, I'm not a woman, but fuck mate, if someone touched me down there and my shit was open, like my pants were open, and I knew there was an invisible fucking slut downstairs or an invisible man, you'd fucking know. They kind of pass it off a bit too blasé, which is a bit silly, but whatever. This is the kind of movie it is. Now, here we go. Now, I've never seen the John Carpenter movie, The Invisible Man. I've never seen the new movie that came out in 2019 or this year, 2020, The Invisible Man with that chick in it, which, like, to me, is like a rip-off of Hollow Man. I haven't seen that either. But it has the feeling of The Incredible Shrinking Man. It's one of them movies, except this is very Paul Verhoeven. It's very scientific. It's very, and I'm going to say the word again, rapacious. Let's keep looking at our notes, eh? Now, one thing I remember the first time I watched this movie was Kevin Bacon killing a dog. Now, if you're thinking of watching this movie because you think it sounds fucking interesting or scientific or anything, heads up. If you like animals, there's a really fucking hardcore scene where he just murders an animal. And it's like, whoa. It's like, to me, that was worse than watching him kill any of the humans, which, heads up, he does later. And, you know, this is a bit of a spoiler review. Too bad. This movie came out 20 years ago. So I'm allowed to spoil now. This movie came out in 2000. It's 2020. I'm allowed to spoil it. I'm allowed to. Whatever. It's my fucking channel. I'll do what I want. So I think before he kills an animal, I think there's a bit where he escapes, right? And he's got this mask on with these big cut open eyes and this big cut open mouth. But the mask makes him look like the Hollow Man, right? And he pulls up to this car, and there's these little kids in the back, and they're like, hey, look at that man, he looks so weird. And he looks at him and he goes like this, takes off his sunnies, and there's just these hollow holes. And they go, ah, and then he goes like this, and opens his mouth at him, and the music fucking kicks in, and they fucking scream, and he just takes off in his Porsche. Now, what makes him do that? That is fucking terrifying, man. The look on his face, it's almost like that was Kevin Bacon playing that strange fucking CGI character. Like, as if Kevin Bacon actually would have fucking done that. This character, Sebastian, I mean, which is why I keep saying Kevin Bacon, because he is such a character actor. And just when he scares them kids, man, I'm like, holy shit, now this is a horror flick. He's already, like, he's done some, like, you know he's going to do some terrible shit. That bit freaked me the fuck out. I was like, holy shit, what? Why scare the kids? They haven't done anything to you. He's like, because he's lost his shit. Now, if it's the serum or if it's just the being invisible, the power, whatever. There's a bit where Josh Brolin actually asked him that. Like, what was it? Was it the serum that made you nuts, mate? Or was it the fucking power that went to your head? Anyway, so he sexually assaults a veterinarian. He murders a dog. He scares some kids. So yeah, this is like a message to my friend who always called this movie The Invisible Rapist. You're right. Fuck this movie. Fuck this movie. I'm not a fan. I'm fucking not a fan at all. This movie can... I've seen it enough. Especially the ending was piss weak, right? So there's some bits where... So here we go. There's a bit where all of a sudden he's killing people, right? He kills someone in there. They know what he's doing. They're like, listen, we have to go to the authorities. And he's like, you're not doing anything, right? You're not taking this away from me. So he starts murdering these scientists one by one. And they're like, why are you doing this? They're calling out because you can't see where he is. And he says, it's amazing what you can do when you don't have to look at yourself in the mirror. Ugh, that's this movie in a nutshell. And it's fucking horrible, right? I've said this 100 times, but you know what? It is. So, and not to mention, there's a scene where he murders some chick covered in blood, because this is a cool scene that I've never seen done before in a film. She's got a handful of blood packs, because the scientists, they're in a lab, they've got animal blood everywhere, blood packs everywhere, but she knows the invisible guy's there somewhere, Kevin Bacon, Invisible Bacon. So she rips all the packages open and splashes blood all over the white porcelain floor, so that she can see that if he walks towards her. Now, it most certainly doesn't save her life, but it does get him covered in blood. And then whilst covered in blood, he murders her and then fills her up after she's dead. It's like, so now I know we're really in like Paul Verhoeven R-rated territory here. I didn't have to Google it and see if this was classified a hard R when it came out, because to me, I already felt like this was a fucking hard R movie. I really, really did. Now, so I think I've made the right choice. I was thinking maybe I was being a bit weak by not reviewing Sleepers or not reviewing The Woodsman. Nah, man. After he wipes the blood off down her tits, after choking her to death, after the amount of sexual assaults, plus there's a rape scene. Thank fuck the camera cuts away from this invisible rape scene, but there is one. And I'm not a fan of him, and that's why I'll never watch this fucking movie again. And I forgot it was fucking in there. Thank God it's just a before and after, but it's fucking in there. So when I picked this Paul Verhoeven film, I thought I was being a bit weak. But I'm not. This is a good bad guy movie. This is a good Kevin Bacon bad guy movie. I think I picked the right one. Because it's right up there. It's absolutely horrible, and it crosses the fucking line. Kevin Bacon film. Now, compared to the horror film I did last week, which is an adventure horror, Tremors, this is a proper horror film. Now, as far as notes go, I've only got one page left, so from what I just remembered just now, like the ending to this, explosions and one-liners, and I cracked a joke at the start. Now, what does Scary Movie 2, Titanic, and Hollow Man have to do with one another? You wouldn't think anything, except there's that many scenes. You know the scenes in Scary Movie 2 where they got the goggles on and they're like, these are ghost goggles and ghost guns, and you only get a few bullets and one gun each and goggles, and you have to shoot the ghost. I've watched Scary Movie 2 100 fucking times. It's my favourite scary movie because Tim Curry's in it. Right? That's my favourite, and it's one of the corniest ones. The Wayans brother, Keenan Ivory Wayans directed it. But there's so much from Hollow Man in this movie. Like the bit where she's trapped in the freezer room and she can't get out, and she's got like, you know, the guy lying now half dead on the floor. Now in Scary Movie 2, she ends up jacking him off, and it's just this terrible fucking scene. That's from Hollow Man. The bit where, like, the fucking invisible guy grabs the motherfucker and he's, like, off his feet, and then they're shooting that gun with the goggles on, that's Hollow Man. So I had no fucking idea how much Scary Movie 2 used Hollow Man for the whole premise of that fucking movie. You know, it's The Haunting of Hill House and Hollow Man, really, with a bit of What Lies Beneath chucked in there, and a couple of other things. But yeah, that's pretty much Scary Movie 2. Like, you can watch the funny version of Hollow Man mixed with Haunting of Hill House. I didn't fucking know that when I was watching Scary Movie 2 over and over again. So that was surprising. So there's a surprise. I knew I was in for the invisible rapist. I didn't know I was in for, that's where Scary Movie 2 got that, and that, and that, and that joke. A lot of fucking jokes from Hollow Man. So, conclusion, the ending makes no sense. She sets fire to him, man. Like, she blasts him with this fucking big fire fucking ball of stuff, and he's covered in this fucking plastic shit that I reckon would have fused to his skin. Even though he's invisible, he fucking still has skin, right? So, but still, it falls off like ash, and he's invisible again. Then she gets him again, and he's invisible again. It's like, the ending makes no fucking sense. And, you know, it would have been fused to his flesh. And then, true to Paul Verhoeven, an elevator falling, there's fucking explosions, and a lot of one-liners. Like, fuck you, you don't believe in God? I'll show you God. Yeah, well, you never were the best, and all these fucking silly-ass one-liners that are nowhere near on par with Scream 1. I just compared it to Scream 1 because it reminded me of, you know, Courtney Cox and Nev Campbell and fucking that idiot that can't act, who plays Billy Loomis in that movie, Skeet Ulrich or whatever his name is, just saying all these one-liners back to each other, like, you know, we'll keep dreaming, always had a thing for you, Sid, and like, you know, like, just that climax. To me, it worked in Scream, the original Scream. It really doesn't work in this, in the last, like, 8 minutes or so, when they're just yelling all these one-liners at each other. The movie didn't really have them. And then the last 8 minutes is just full of these fucking one-liners. So, here we go. I love Kevin Bacon. And this is my ending. In conclusion, fuck this movie. Fuck The Invisible Rapist, a.k.a. Hollow Man by Paul Verhoeven. I love his movies. RoboCop, Total Recall, Starship Troopers Forever. Basic Instinct is a very good film. Hollow Man, go watch it. I'm not watching it again. I watched it for this channel. I didn't watch it for me. And that's straight from the heart. So, tune in next week. You know why? Because I was going to save my favourite Kevin Bacon movie of all time for last. But I think I'll save one of his more popular ones for last. So, tune in next week for Stir of Echoes with Kevin Bacon. Look after one another. Read some good books. Watch some good movies. And don't take any shit from anybody. See ya.